In today's video, a woman has been shot by Border Patrol in Chicago, and after that apartment raid by ICE, the mayor is speaking out. Also, the government shutdown has CNN now blaming Democrats for it, and so in all these stories, we'll show you what both sides are saying and then give you the bottom line.
A stunning attack on federal law enforcement officers near a Chicago ICE facility this morning. The Department of Homeland Security says agents were boxed in by 10 cars and one of the drivers had a gun.
Hi, John. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says law enforcement officers were boxed in by 10 cars this morning in Broadview, Illinois, the very same area where anti-ICE crowds have been gathering for days. She said, quote, agents were unable to move their vehicle and exited the car. One of the drivers who rammed the law enforcement vehicle was armed with a semi-automatic weapon. She says law enforcement fired defensive shots at an armed U.S. citizen who drove herself to the hospital to get care for wounds. McLaughlin also said that the armed woman was named in a CBP intelligence bulletin last week for doxing agents and posting online, "Hey, to all my gang, let's F them up. Don't let them take anyone."
Now, to make sure you guys understand exactly what you heard, there was a lady who was shot today by Border Patrol. Why? Because she was trying to kill them. She was trying to run them down. This is continuing to escalate in Chicago as more people are trying to ram their vehicles. Okay, there was already two separate incidents when that happened today. And now you heard of this lady actually trying to run over an ICE officer, and she had a semi-automatic weapon in her vehicle. This is just crazy. Now, here's what the secretary had to say. Our brave men and women of law enforcement are being targeted and attacked by violent anarchists who seek to tear down America. I want each and every member of law enforcement to know this. President Trump and I have your back. Stand with ICE as they continue to protect and defend our homeland. And just to give you guys an idea, and listen, we try to block out as much as the foul language as possible, but just watch this clip. This is an example that happened immediately after this shooting took place in another area of Chicago where they're trying to ram the vehicles of ICE. Take a look. So clearly what is taking place here is that people in Chicago who do not agree with ICE are getting into their own vehicles, even motorcycles, which you just saw in that clip. They're basically slamming on the brakes in front of these ICE vehicles and not moving. They want the ICE vehicle to basically ram into theirs. I don't know. But what they're doing is trying to stop them from moving, traveling, doing their jobs. And again, the fascinating part is, how is this the best solution forward? How is this the right way to protest what you disagree with? I find that to be interesting. But what's more interesting is what the governor had to say this morning to all of this. Take a look.
In the past few weeks in Chicago, ICE has detained multiple U.S. citizens because they were black or brown. They shot gas pellets into the car of a journalist who had done nothing except drive past an ICE facility to observe what was going on. They raided an apartment complex in the middle of the night and perp walked a group of young children out of the building with their hands zip-tied behind them, separating them from their parents.
Okay, so we pick up today in our video in an effort to at least give you guys the full picture to this news story from mainstream media, because as you guys know, ICE went into a Chicago apartment complex in order to arrest TDA gang members who frequent that area often. And as a result of them doing that, there were American citizens who were detained in the process, removed from the building so they could separate who was TDA and who wasn't. And the interesting part about it is how the mainstream media wants to spin this. As you guys see here on the screen, 37 people arrested and American kids separated from parents after ICE raid at Chicago apartments. Now, before I read you more of this misleading article, I want you to see how upset Democrats are about this entire operation. Take a look at this exchange that happened on CNN earlier today with Scott Jennings.
I know that Trinidad, Aragua and Gaines and whatever, it's a catch-all to treat people however you want, to go in there and shred the Constitution or whatever else it is that you want to do. What I'm asking you is this. Do you think that children should have been zip-tied and pulled out of an apartment complex and traumatized like that? Yes or no?
I don't think children should be put in harm's way by transnational gangs.
Just answer the question. Yes or no? Do you think that children...
I don't accept the premise of your question.
I'm asking
the government's not putting children in harm's way. Trinidad, Aragua...
Real calm now. Real calm. Like
they're the ones putting children in harm's way.
Gentlemen and gentlemen, we have a responsibility for the way we treat people with the power that we have here in America. And we have a standard that we should treat human life with. And I'm asking you very clearly, concisely, should children be treated that way? Does Scott Jennings like that?
I don't accept the premise of your question.
All right, cool.
I don't believe that the premise of your question is accurate. I would ask you back. Should children be allowed to live in an apartment building with Trinidad Aragua? Should the entire community of Chicago have to live with Trinidad Aragua because they hide behind these children?
But here's the thing.
That's my question.
All right, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but this is a huge announcement. So Trump Media Group partnered with Crypto.com in a $6.4 billion deal. Why is this so important? Well, in case you didn't know, I have a Crypto.com account and I invested in the Trump meme coin earlier this year and I was successful. Okay. And so when I heard about this news of Trump Media Group partnering with Crypto.com to establish the first American crypto treasury, I knew I had to be somewhat involved and figure out more information and then share it with you guys. See, you don't have to technically be an expert when it comes to crypto to participate in things like this. You just have to be aware, and you should probably have an account with Crypto.com, because understand something. What continues to happen to the American dollar, you know, and I know it. And I truly believe that Bitcoin is the future in some way, shape, or form, including crypto in general. So head over to Crypto.com, be a part of this movement, this historic change, and how this administration is backing the power of crypto. Again, head over to Crypto.com today. Now, if we were to remove the emotion from this conversation and actually have a debate based on the merits and the way that operations are executed via law enforcement, we would find that what they did last night was highly effective, very strategic, in the middle of the night, which makes sense. If you think about Navy SEALs, if you think about SWAT, the best time to go in is always during the nighttime, because that's when most people are sleeping. Okay. Now, let's get back to this article, because, you know, I think a lot of people are going to be misled by this story, just like all the other ones. And it's because of the language that mainstream media likes to use. I'll just read a couple of snippets of this. Adults and children alike were pulled from their Chicago apartments, crying and screaming during a large overnight raid that has left tenants and neighbors shaken. Okay, so they were pulled. Yeah, that makes sense. There's a raid happening here. If SWAT went into someone's home, they would pull the family members out of the home and they would probably detain them in the process. And I don't understand for the life of me, and if you're a law enforcement officer, please correct me if I'm wrong here. When did getting detained violate someone's rights, especially during a raid, you know, or an operation like this? Now, I know it is an inconvenience, yes, but is it a violation of law? Not to my understanding, but I've never been a police officer. Now, let's go to the mayor of Chicago and what he had to say about all this. Take a listen.
This is coming to the front doorsteps of people in your community, in your city, who are American citizens, who no evidence has been shown that they are a part of Trinidad Aragua or even any of the other folks that were in that building a part of that. Talk a little bit about what it is like for the people in that apartment building to feel so under siege.
Well, the tensions are certainly high in the city of Chicago. What the president is doing is absolutely dangerous and unconstitutional. But our position is clear. We're going to remain resolved and firm in our position to protect the rights of all of our residents. What you are describing is something that we have been warning about for some time, that there are a number of people, including the President of the United States of America, that have decided to declare war on poor people and on working people across the country. And this raid that you are describing was on the south side of Chicago, where black folks live. And it is evident that this is not about safety. It's not about deportation. This is about the president of the United States of America and his kind that are looking to stoke and foment chaos and fear within our streets of cities across America. But we're going to remain firm and we're going to fight back against this tyranny.
Now, you notice how they feel bad for the people who were in the apartment, but they don't feel bad in regards to the victims that have obviously been violated by these TDA gang members in some way, shape, or form. Now, I don't know what their rap sheets are because I don't have them in front of me, but I like to think that if you're part of the TDA gang, you probably have committed crimes, okay? So, but this is how mainstream media does it, right? They frame the victims in a certain way, okay? And usually those victims happen to be criminals. Now, they've been focusing on the kids in the process. They're focusing on the people that live in Chicago, and they don't give any attention to the actual criminals. In fact, they question whether or not there was actually criminals in that building. That's how delusional they are. Okay, so then the governor goes on to social media. This is also earlier this morning to share the fact that the Trump administration has given him an ultimatum. Take a listen.
And we're following some breaking news here now. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker posting on X just moments ago saying, quote, "This morning, the Trump administration's Department of War gave me an ultimatum. Call up your troops or we will." It is absolutely outrageous and un-American to demand a governor send military troops within our own borders and against our will. Pritzker also says, quote, "In the coming hours, the Trump administration intends to federalize 300 members of the Illinois National Guard." It comes as more than a dozen demonstrators have been arrested in Illinois at an ICE facility outside of Chicago. Federal agents clashing with protesters shortly after the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was seen on the facility's rooftop Friday morning. A large law enforcement presence clearly taking place there as Illinois state troopers were called in to assist with maintaining distance between demonstrators and federal agents. Protesters staking out the building for weeks, calling for more transparency from the agency and especially on the conditions inside, citing safety concerns. Also, some groups alleging unlawful detention and looking to address Noem directly.
Okay, so clearly we know that the National Guard troops will be federalized because these ICE detention facilities continue to be attacked. So where does this really take us? Well, number one, Democrat Party continued to support the violence that is continuing to happen towards ICE agents and ICE detention facility, meaning a federal property is being assaulted on. And so that's why the president has the authority to do something about it. Secondly, you also see mainstream media spinning these stories up in a way to persuade public opinion to be against what the Trump administration is doing. And I think at some level they are successful at doing that, because if you look at this poll I'm about to show you from the New York Times, it says 53% of Americans believe President Trump has gone too far by deploying National Guard troops to these cities. Take a listen.
Show you this poll from the New York Times, Sienna. Do you think Donald Trump's actions sending National Guard troops into big cities have gone too far? 53% of those surveyed said yes. Real fast, do you think President Trump even cares what the American people think?
No, he does not. Masked men going into people's homes in the middle of the night, pointing long guns in the faces of black and brown and working people and poor people is unconstitutional, reprehensible. And in the city of Chicago, we're going to fight back.
You know, the one thing that gets me going is that this freaking mayor is spending all this time, all this energy, all this focus, all this outrage about criminal illegal aliens being apprehended in his city. But where is that same energy when it comes to black children being murdered in his streets? I find that to be very interesting, that even the people he say he wants to protect, his community, who are clearly being impacted by illegal immigration, he's not protecting them. He wants to protect the illegals. I just think it's a freaking joke. Pure hypocrisy. I think it's evilness, in my opinion. Okay, so let's get to these crosstabs about that poll that MSDNC was referencing. I thought this was interesting. 2 points. Number one, that women came in at 58%, believing that the president has gone too far with the National Guard, and men only came in at 47%. And then when you're thinking about race, 69% of people who are not white believe that the president has gone too far, and only 46% of people who are white believe that idea. So yeah, I again, if you're watching MSDNC all day long and you're not doing your research and you have a hard time seeing the full picture of what's really happening, yeah, you probably going to buy into this idea that he's gone too far. They don't even have the information or the awareness of where the National Guard is. They think the National Guard is just roaming the streets. No, they're stationed at the ICE detention facilities. All right, now this takes us to our next update regarding the government shutdown. As you guys already know, it's no close to being over, and Democrats continue to blame Republicans, et cetera, et cetera. But what was interesting is what happened on CNN this morning, as one of their hosts is actually blaming Democrats for all of this. Take a look.
I'm an independent contractor with both CNN and Sirius XM. This is how and where I get my health insurance. And there's nothing Mamdani about it. But while, like the Democrats, I'm protective of the ACA, their efforts to shut down the government violate my time and place rule. Because Republicans have advanced a clean continuing resolution. This is not the time and place to litigate health insurance policy. The objective should be to fund the obligations already made by the Congress. And if the result is catastrophic insurance losses and premium hikes for consumers, the solution should come in next year's midterm election.
Yeah, so let's make sure you have the full picture. Democrats are claiming that the ACA subsidies, if they don't get that dealt with right now, that everybody's premiums are going to skyrocket and it's going to be Armageddon. Now, there is truth to that. There is a conversation that needs to be had about that. They do need to negotiate, debate, and figure out what is the best number, or how are we going to make sure that both sides come to a compromise regarding those subsidies. But does that conversation have to happen right now at this moment? According to which side you lean, if you're on the right, the answer is no. We're still a month out from having that conversation because those don't expire until December 31st. So technically, you don't need to do that right now. Now, if you're the Democrats, you're using that as an excuse for not making sure that the government stays open because you want the American people to feel the pain of a government shutdown. And you're hoping that the American people, majority of them rather, blame the president and Republicans. And so that you're hoping that will give you that midterm win.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for doing this. I just want to start here. Why should Americans not blame you and your party for this shutdown? Is there no middle ground compromise between Democrats' push for these Affordable Care Act tax credits and, the fact that they might be expiring soon?
Well, the Democrats are arguing an issue that was not to be decided until the end of the year. Those subsidies they're talking about expire December 31st. What we're talking about is a simple stopgap funding measure to keep the government in operation so that we can have those debates. They're using it as a red herring. There's nothing for me to offer in a negotiation to put on the table because what we passed out of the House and sent to our friends in the Senate is a clean continuing resolution. It's a short-term, 24-page bill everybody can read and see. All we said is let's maintain status quo for 7 more weeks so Republicans and Democrats can work together and figure out what the appropriations bills look like.
Okay, so after seeing exactly what's been taking place so far, I'm really convinced the likely resolution here is that there will be a few more Democrats in the Senate that will flip, and then the government will be back open, because you can only let this go on for so long if you're talking about the Democrat Party, because the reasoning they are using, which is the subsidies, just isn't going to fly. Okay, and when you have CNN confirming that and other networks confirming that, you're already losing credibility. So then what do? You run to MSDNC and you start trying to tell people there that, no, what's really happening here is that the Trump administration just wants to make this all about illegal aliens. Take a look.
Can you speak to the lie that the administration and Republicans are pushing, that you all are fighting for undocumented immigrants to have all this fancy health care all of a sudden, that's what this is about? Because that's not true, is it?
Well, it's also nuts, I think, that they always go to undocumented people. Mm-hmm. Illegal immigrants. They're going to blame illegal immigrants for everything. Mm-hmm. If you are undocumented in our country, you cannot get health care from the Affordable Care Act exchange. You are not eligible for Medicare. You are not eligible for Medicaid for undocumented people. So they're just making that up. They just like to blame
brown people for
brown
everything.
people.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing they always leave out is that they wouldn't be able to provide health care to illegal aliens if it wasn't for the federal government subsidizing their health care at the state level. That's always the thing missing from this entire conversation. If the federal government didn't do it, then they wouldn't have money to give to illegal aliens. And I'm really talking about California because I think they are the biggest ones who are taking advantage of that loophole, so to speak. Now, let's circle back to Smerconish here on CNN because he doubles down. He believes Democrats are going in the wrong direction as it pertains to this shutdown. Take a listen.
I'm sorry, but I'm lost as to why ours should be blamed when almost every one of them voted to keep the government open and most Ds voted against them. I'm not blaming the Rs. I'm telling you that I believe that the Democrats are correct in fighting for the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act is so maligned and so misunderstood. But just my opinion, they shouldn't be shutting down the government to do it. Especially because they're a month off. This is what I was trying to explain to Senator Coons. In a month, when people get premium notices and now realize, oh my God, my premium is going up 20%, what are we going to do about this? But to do it now, I think just makes the Democrats the obstructionists. They're the ones keeping 700,000 people in a furloughed status. And just wait if we get another 10 days and troops, our military don't get paid. Or just, God forbid, if TSA agents start calling in sick. Just get it together, be adults. We've already made these commitments, fund the government, and turn the machines back on. That's what I'm saying.
Now, Michael Smerconish is not a Republican, ladies and gentlemen. You know that. He is not conservative whatsoever. But I find a lot of his analysis to be what I would hope in a better world, in a better country, Democrats would think like. And that is people who are pragmatic and are willing to compromise and see the bigger picture right now. The bigger picture is don't try to weaponize healthcare to keep the government shut down. I mean, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Republicans aren't weaponizing anything to keep the government closed. So why are you guys doing that? And the real debate, because it's a worthy one to have surrounding these subsidies, isn't something that should be happening over the pressure of a government shutdown. It should be happening when the government is open. But I think that type of thinking is reserved for people who are, trying to work together to find some type of common ground. And of course, it's not going to happen because you still have Hakeem Jeffries going on to MSDNC and saying this about the Trump administration.
Well, cruelty is the point as it relates to the Trump administration, and we've seen that from the very beginning. On day one, on January 20th. They made all these promises about lowering the high cost of living, but costs haven't gone down in the United States of America. They promised to lower costs on day one. Costs are going up. Inflation is going up. The Trump tariffs are making life more expensive. And now Republicans, on top of that, are continuing to gut the health care of the American people and are going to dramatically increase premiums, copays, and deductibles on tens of millions of Americans. Those that benefit from the Affordable Care Act tax credits, and those are working class and middle class Americans, but people all across the country, as a result of this health care crisis that Republicans have created, are actually going to experience increased health care costs as well, and that's unacceptable.
Okay, so why don't we hear from you guys in the comment section below? Let's just start with the government shutdown and what Hakeem Jeffries had to say. Do you believe it is right for Democrats to use the ACA subsidies in an effort to fight during this government shutdown, or should they just go ahead and get the government back open and then have that fight? Let me know what you guys think about that. Secondly, what do you make of people in Chicago ramming their vehicles into ICE officers, in one case trying to run over one of them, which led to them getting shot? What do you make of that? Do you believe the National Guard is the right move here based on that New York Times poll that I showed you? Just give me all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. All right, so now we go to our next video where Hamas has accepted key pieces of President Trump's peace proposal that could bring the end to this Israel and Hamas war. If you missed out on that update and more from yesterday, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.